I wonder how many of you have a friend today that when you met them in the first place, you thought they were just weird as heck. Anybody? Like you met them and you just thought like, wow, you're really weird. If not, but now we're friends, right? If like you haven't had that experience, then I've got news for you. You are that friend. You're the one that they thought that about. And I can say that because I'm that person. I'm that one. Like, I guarantee 9 times out of 10 when people meet me, they're like, wow, you're really weird. And then 8 out of that 9, after we've been friends for a long time, are still saying, wow, you're really weird. It just doesn't, like, wear off. I don't know. It's just who I am. It's how God made me, so shove it! I'm just kidding. But the whole point is that there is more to a person than what you see on the surface. There's more to the story. And that's kind of what this series is all about, except for something different, not just people, but specifically sex. There's more to this story than what we see on the surface and that what we know from our culture and society. Now, there are definitely some topics that you would expect us to talk about at church, like prayer and love and the Bible. And we're going to talk about those things tonight, but they're not the specific focus of this evening. They are support for a different topic, one that you probably wouldn't expect to be talking about in a church. And I'm not talking about Harry Styles or, streaming content on Twitch or boosting your TikTok following. We're talking about porn. We're talking about porn tonight. And the reason is because we need to. We need to talk about it. It's too relevant in our culture and in society, and it's just too prominent. And we love you too much. We care about you too much not to talk about it. So thank you for being here, whether you knew that or not. We're all along for this. And so, I want to begin by saying that tonight is not about guilt and shame. One of the first things that can come into our minds is guilt and shame, especially if we've looked at porn or we feel this guilt. And you feel that already. I'm not going to add any more to that. Tonight is about truth and grace. Not guilt and shame, but truth and grace. And I want this evening, my hope and my prayer for this evening, just so you know where we're going to take it, is that it would be informative, that maybe we can learn something tonight together, and that also it would be a night filled with hope and filled with encouragement in an area where there rarely is any hope or encouragement, if any at all. And I want that for every person in here tonight, no matter what your experience is with porn, whether it's a lot, a little, or none at all, it could still be in your future. So I pray that we're all tuned in tonight. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines pornography as this: the depiction of erotic behavior, sexual behavior, explicit behavior. Now, it's a depiction, right? So this is not reality, okay? I want you to catch that from the beginning. The depiction of erotic behavior, as in pictures, writing, or media, which I would argue can include music, and its intent is to cause sexual excitement. Now, catch that too. Its intent isn't to show you how loved and how valuable you are. Its intent is to it's to have a reaction. It's to get you addicted, because this is an industry. This is a $12 billion a year industry that's capitalizing off of people and the exploitation of sex and sexuality. Now, you may be in this room and you may have never seen porn, but I would argue that everyone here has been exposed to pornographic content on some level. And you might disagree, but it's sneaky, right? Our culture excuses and normalizes it. It doesn't seem like a very big deal, and we might not even know we've been exposed to it because it's sneaky. Maybe you're listening to a comedian and they just make sexually graphic jokes. Right? Maybe a song by Cardi B or DaBaby comes on the radio, and it's just riddled and filled with the most grotesquely sexual things, but you're just like, it's on the radio, I don't know, it's just music. And we don't really think about it too much. We think it's no big deal, right? When we're watching TV or an in-app ad pops up and it's pornographic in nature, or whether we're watching a movie or Netflix or Hulu, right? And there are undertones of pornographic imagery all throughout these things, but we say because it's in society and culture and on the magazine racks, and it's just a part of it. And we think it's not really that big of a deal, but you are developing a callus. You are developing a desensitization to the things that God intended and originally designed to be holy. The average age of exposure to porn is 11 years old. And I know y'all are smart in this room, and you know what it takes to make an average. To get an average like the age of 11, you've got to have just as many 12, 13, and 14-year-olds as you do 10, 9, and 8-year-olds being exposed to pornography. And I don't care who you are, how pure and how holy and how righteous you have lived up to this point. We have all, and I mean everyone in this room, been affected and influenced by porn culture. It's inescapable in the modern day. It's inescapable if you have internet access. It's inescapable if you live in the world today. And as I look around the room, I see people who are living in the world today. So, what do we do? Because I would argue that this is possibly the largest, most destructive global crisis in the world today. And there are a lot of global crises happening in the world today, right? But this one, in my opinion, is the largest and most destructive. So I hope y'all are taking notes today. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 15. So if you've got a Bible, go ahead and flap it open to that. The book of Proverbs was written by, does anybody know? Solomon, yes. The book of Proverbs was written by Solomon, who was considered to be extremely wise, if not the wisest person to have ever lived. And he writes in chapter 14, verse 15, "The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps." You say, what's in this verse? Well, let's break it down. The simple, who are the simple? This refers to someone who is like naive, somebody who is gullible. Like, you know this person? Are you this person? You kind of just fall for things easily. You fall for like every prank. You believe every like science experiment on TikTok you see is real and gonna work and stuff. Or you believe that you're just easily tricked. You're gullible, right? That's a simple person. And I think a lot of us are like this towards porn. We're just kind of naive about it. We look at it and we say, well, I'm not really hurting anyone. I'm not really hurting anyone. I could be doing worse things, and there are all these justifications, right? We could say, well, I'm not really doing anything, or at least I'm not having sex with a real person, so I'm still like a virgin, so God can't be that mad at me. But believing these lies is like believing a McDonald's ad that says you can be healthy off of eating nothing but double cheeseburgers. Like, it's a deception. Don't believe the lie of porn and don't fall into the trap, because listen, there's more to the story, and porn never tells the whole story. And this is the bottom line for tonight. Porn never tells the whole story. All right? There's a website called fightthenewdrug.org. And I highly recommend it. It's a collaborative effort, and they have studied the effects of porn on people for decades and written over 1,000 articles that I highly recommend just reading through to kind of wrap your brain around porn and its effects, short and long term, on people. I have just kind of picked out a few that I wanted to share with y'all today. But yeah, take a picture of that, like go check it out. We'll get to why it's called Fight the New Drug in a second, but here are a couple of statistics. Number one, studies have found that porn use is correlated with intimacy problems. You're like, well, go figure, right? Porn is not the solution to spice things up or to learn how to try different things, right? It's actually the problem, and it's the reason that relationships and marriages often get ripped apart. There are statistics about that on fightthenewdrug.org. Next, the sex acts shown or depicted in pornography are unrealistic and often abusive. Guys in the room, let me talk to you for a second. Do you want to be an abuser? Ladies, do you want to be abused? Do you want to be a victim? Because if you're watching porn, that's more than likely what you're watching and what you're learning from. Porn is correlated with lower quality of life and poorer health. I wonder, how's your health tonight as you sit in this room? It's also linked to anxiety and stress and depression, the inability to focus. It's linked to motivation problems, just getting motivated. How are those things for you tonight? And could there be a link? Finally, pornography makes violence appear sexy. And I can't help but think about those girls at the refuge ranch that we help out, who have been victims rescued and on the road to rehabilitation from domestic minor sex trafficking. I've got to believe that their situations have roots in pornography. You know what all this sounds like to me? As I think about it like it's like a war. These are like battles taking place, tiny battles that are all a part of a big war. And the war is raging over you, over your sexuality, over your relationships, over your future marriages. And battles are being fought and won. This is how I fight my battles, right? How are you fighting them? Battles are being lost and won all the time in the sexual realm, in the spiritual realm. It's all together because that's how God designed it. And it's all a part of a war for your heart. Porn is the enemy's Goliath. Porn is the enemy's Goliath, and he has infiltrated and deceived every part of our culture. He's an intimidating giant that seems unbeatable, but he's not. He has taken what God meant for good, and he's turned it for evil. He's created a counterfeit and is successfully affecting everyone with this toxic currency. He's come to steal, kill, and destroy. Porn is like Goliath. I wonder, are you like David? You know, God designed our brains pretty cool. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to science and things like this. My wife will often come home and just find me on the couch watching some dorky science video and just reading books about sciencey things. That's just me. But I'm just going to share this with you, so bear with me if you don't give a rip about science, right? But it's pretty awesome and it matters, so check it out. There are synapses that fire these in your brain. They're like these neural pathways. You could think of them like bridges, okay? There are bridges in your brain that haven't been formed yet, then they get formed whenever a new experience happens. And your brain learns that this experience can happen. This thing that has never happened before now has. And think of them like pleasure bridges. And once you've formed that pleasure bridge, you crave walking across it now that you know, hey, the bridge is open, because it feels good. You know why it feels good? Because God designed it to feel good. You know why he designed it to feel good? So that you would want more. And when that happens, it's also known as oftentimes an addiction. And this is how drug addictions work. There are connections in your brain that have never happened before until you take that drug. And whenever you take that drug, your brain's like, whoa, I kind of liked that. I want some more of that. I want to do that again. It made me feel weird. And so you do it again, and all of a sudden you're addicted. But the same thing happens when you look at porn. But in God's design, we were created to be addicted to our spouse, because that bridge was supposed to be formed with our spouse on our wedding night. And your body was supposed to say, wow, that feels good. I want more of that. I crave that. And you were supposed to just be addicted to this person, craving more and more of them. And that's how it should be, this between the two of you. But what's ended up happening is that these bridges are now being formed at the age of 11, at the age of 9, 8. And our bodies have become addicted to this video we see on a phone, to devices and and things and random people, thousands of them. And our brains don't know what to do with it. They're just flipping out and freaking out. So it's no wonder relationships are falling apart. It's no wonder marriages don't last. Like the wiring in our brains is all jacked up. But there's hope. I say that, it's like, geez, I wasn't depressed before, but there's hope, because no matter how small and weak you may feel, you can defeat Goliath. You just got to reach for the stone in your pocket that's easily accessible. His name is Jesus Christ. You might not be able to do it on your own, but you and him sure as heck can. Will you access him? In 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, God says this, "My grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in your weakness. When you are weak, he is strong." God said this to Paul. And like I said earlier, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He has stolen intimacy, he has killed relationships, and he has destroyed futures. But Jesus came so that we may have life. The damage can be undone. It was done on the cross. And we can have not just life, but life abundantly, or to the fullest measure. Because God is 100% loving. He's 100% filled with grace, mercy, compassion, and forgiveness for you, no matter what you've seen and what you've done. And listen, porn is 100% void of love. These two things couldn't be further away from each other. We've talked tonight about what porn does and what it is, and I want to share with you some things that porn is not. Number one, porn is not good. And you're like, duh, that's obvious. And it might sound silly, but there's not one good thing that has become better because of porn. A bad tree can't produce good fruit. It just can't. God is the only source of goodness. There's no goodness in it inherently. Remember the definition of porn that we read earlier? We said it's a depiction of erotic behavior. This is not what you're watching when you see it. If you see it, it's not a loving, worshipful, sexual relationship between two people who love God like God intended. And then it says that it's intended to cause sexual excitement. It's not to make you better. It's to make you addicted. Number two, porn is not sex education. You're sitting here thinking, how am I supposed to know what he expects from me? How am I supposed to know what to do on that day? I don't want to look like an idiot with my boyfriend or my girlfriend. I should probably go and learn. That's not the place. That's not the place. God has a lot to say about what a God-honoring sexual relationship looks like. Go there. If you are a Christian and you want to follow Jesus and you want to honor and glorify him with your body and in your relationship, you're not going to do that learning through porn. I promise you. So honor yourself and your future partner. And finally, porn is not love. It's not. In 1 Corinthians 13, Paul describes what love is. And if you've spent any time in the church, you probably are familiar with this passage where he says, love is patient and love is kind, and it's not jealous and it's not boastful, it's not proud, and it's not rude. Can you say these things about porn? Can you replace the word love with porn in any of these? No. It doesn't demand its own way. You can't do that. It's not love. It's a counterfeit. It's not love. It's not good. And it's not sex education. Two things as we finish up tonight. Number one, refuse to be fooled. These are just some things to take away tonight. We've learned that it's kind of like everywhere and it's inescapable, right? Which can seem pretty demoralizing. But now I think we know some facts and we've got some resources, and we're going to make some more of those available for you as well. But we've got to not be fooled. We've got to see the trap of the enemy and don't step into the trap. We've got to instead step into the loving arms of Jesus. And number two, refuse to participate. Refuse to be fooled and refuse to participate. Create a plan, all right? Create a plan when you are tempted, because in every tempting situation, God will always provide a way out. So think of what you will do before you encounter that trap, because that's what God says the wise person does, right? That's what Solomon said the wise person does. He gives thought to his steps, right? So come up with a plan and refuse to participate. And this could be as simple as changing the radio station when a song comes on. You could just say, no, I refuse to listen to that. It's toxic for me. And just change the dang radio station. Maybe you've got to delete a playlist. Maybe you've got to take some more drastic measures and unfollow some people on some social media accounts, right? And it's not to be better than anybody. You're not just bragging on all this. You do it as an act of worship between you and the Lord because you want to be better and honor Jesus. Maybe it's not spending the night at somebody's house because when you do, you know what they look at whenever everybody else in the house goes to sleep. Maybe it's throwing something that you own away and getting it out of your house. Maybe it's setting up some parameters for yourself and getting an accountability partner to be open and honest with. Which leads me to my next things. Number one, talk to God. Talk to God. If you can't talk to God, you can't talk to someone. You've got to be able to talk to him. He already knows anyway. Talk to him. Talk to him about your struggles. 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. I wonder if you've ever felt dirty before. Maybe if it's just something you've heard, something you've seen, something you've just been a part of, and you're like, I didn't even want to cleanse you. That sounds good, doesn't it? If you confess your sins, he's faithful and just or quick to forgive you. That's cool. You can't out-sin God. He never runs out of forgiveness. Praise God for that. So talk to God and talk to someone. The enemy is going to try to talk you out of this, by the way. So just be ready. As I say, talk to somebody, you're already sitting there thinking like, I can't talk to anybody about this. If they know, they're going to judge me. If they know, they're going to think differently about me. If they know, they're never going to look at me the same. I'm a leader. I can't be a leader and struggling with this. Everybody struggles. Everybody struggles with something. And God is faithful and just to forgive. And his people are too. We're not worried about the wins and the losses here. We're not keeping score. Because you know what another thing love does? Doesn't keep a record of wrongs. We're not worried about you stopping if you have been in this world where you're looking at porn and you find yourself addicted. I'm not worried about you stopping today just like that and just being done forever. And if you fall again, then you're just the biggest failure ever. That's where shame and guilt come. We're talking about truth and grace, remember? We're worried about you being honest. Because a victory can't come if you're not honest first. Be honest with God and then be honest with someone and then spend time praying about who that person is. I recommend somebody older than you. I think some people in here need to have a moment where you're honest with your parents and you share it with them. If you really want to get better, it sometimes takes something drastic. There are people who want to love you unconditionally, just like Jesus did, because he gave his life up for us. Listen, while we were still sinners, while you were still a sinner, he knew everything that you've done, thought, seen, everything that you ever will do, and he chose to give his life up for you anyway. And that's special. There are people like that in your life who want to love you unconditionally. Trust them and take some steps forward. Because remember, in Proverbs 14, verse 15, we said the simple believe anything. Don't be naive. Don't be gullible. Don't believe the lies of the enemy. Believe the truth of Jesus, because the prudent or the wise, the ones who think about their future, they give thought to their steps. Make plans today that are going to benefit your future, not blow it up. You know who wrote that, right? We said it earlier, Solomon. You know who Solomon's dad was? David, the one who defeated Goliath.